Never miss our updates and be part of our conversation squad.
15 days ago, he gave me two titles. One was elections, which unfortunately has stuck with me because although I'm a civil servant who has done dozens of jobs, but this was the last and of course a very, very important one. But of course as a civil servant I have a lot more to share with you. The other subject was population, on which I wrote a book almost accidentally, originally in the form of a paper in 1995, later on a book about 3 years ago. So I chose this topic because on election you all know everything and you all have your views on it, positive, negative, but generally on expected lines. But this is an area about which there is a lot of ignorance. And I must confess, when I started, I knew nothing about the subject. How it started accidentally. Can I have a glass of water, please? Pani, when I started, 95, suddenly I got a call. Somebody came to meet me, for resident coordinator of UNFPA. He was a white Canadian. He said, Quraishi, we want you to write a strategy paper for family planning among the Muslims, because Muslim family planning was the lowest. So I said, look, I know nothing about Islam except whatever little I heard from my parents, and very little about family planning because I had not worked in health department of family planning. Of course, I knew about family planning as a collector of a district, which was Gurgaon, and a subdivisional magistrate where at the peak of emergency, where all these things were happening. So he offered me a consultancy of 1 month, 1.5 lakh rupees. My salary was 5,000. It's a very attractive proposition. But somehow something within me said that I should not do it for money. I'll do it pro bono. And I said, I will not charge any money. He was taken aback. He said, people bring pressure on us to give consultancies and here you are saying you don't want any money. I said, yes, that's what I feel. So he said, no, we always pay and we will pay you also. So we negotiated and settled on a royal sum of 1 rupee. Now, 1 rupee or 1 million, it is a financial transaction. The procedures have to be gone through. I said, you write to me, I'll take permission of Government of India, which was the Health Ministry, which later Sujata headed, where I was a special secretary, which is number 2. So, and that was the time when these permissions were not so difficult. Today I would not have been able to get it. So we got the permission, we wrote and I did not know what I'm going to write because as I said, I knew nothing about it. But when I did my research on it, I found that there was total ignorance. There were so many myths among the Muslims themselves and among the non-Muslims about various things. This presentation, where is the remote? Or should I have to, for the slide? Yeah. There are several myths being spread about Muslims and population which are creating fear and hostility. Now this is the book. I wish there were copies. This is my personal copy which I brought, but I'll be very happy to give it to the chief organizer of this for his record in library. I've picked up only a few myths to explain today. I have 35 minutes and I'll be able to do it because there were basically 5 myths I'm talking about. The Muslims produce too many children and are solely responsible for the population explosion. Yes, Muslims have the lowest level of family planning, only 47%. And yes, their TFR is 2.3, which is the highest. I start with an admission in this book also. But the fact that Hindus are not far behind, with second lowest family planning at 58% and second highest TFR of 2 is completely missed. It's only Muslim, they produce children. Hindus don't produce children. This funny thing. Their performance is the second weakest after the Muslims. We need to know that. Now 2% Hindus do not practice family planning. Half the Hindus also do not practice family planning, which is a bit less than the Muslims. Actually, Hindus and Muslims are in the same boat. Now between 1951 and 2011 census, which is the last census, we don't know why the census has not happened. Maybe Sujata would know. That's very helpful, very, very thoughtful of you. Thank you so much. Now, between 1951 and 2011, the net increase in Muslim population was 13.6 crores and of Hindus 67.7 crores. Thus, major contribution to population explosion came from the Hindus, as much as 5 times more than the Muslims. Now, the gap between Muslim, this is very important, gap between Muslim and Hindu population increased from 26 crores to 80 crores. The propaganda is that Muslims are overtaking the Hindus. I have heard many in the videos they are spreading around that by 2029, Muslims will be in majority. In 5 years, they will be in majority. And you will notice that the gap is increasing. That the propaganda that Muslims are overtaking Hindus is absurd. That is the politest word. Now, myth number 2, Muslim population growth is upsetting the demographic balance. Yes, I admit to a certain extent, the demographic ratio of India indeed shows an increase in Muslims from 9.8 in 51 to 14.2 in 2011. And consequent decline of Hindus from 84% to 79.8%. This is an increase of 4.4 percentage points in 60 years. Muslims have increased 4.4 points in 60 years. From 10% to 51%, to increase by 40%, how many years will they take? Even a class 3 or 4 student will tell you, he will take what has taken 60 years, he will take 600 years for Muslims to become majority. 600 years, not 5 years as is being predicted by the people calling for genocide of the Muslims. Now, Muslims are interesting fact, which was not known to me and not known to many others. Muslims are adopting family planning faster than Hindus and in fact every other community. The gap in the number of children, which we used to think about 8, 10. If Hindu family has 2, Muslims have 10 children, the gap was never more than 1 child. A National Family Health Survey conducted by sponsored by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. 5 surveys have been done after every 5 years. 30 years ago, the gap was 1 child, not 10 children. And that gap has been narrowing because Muslims are adopting family planning faster. As a result, the gap has come down to 0.3. Then, now this is how the gap is narrowing. From 1, this is showing NFHS 4. In my, I should update the slide to NFHS 5, which has come about a year ago, and it has improved the figures further. Myth number 3. There is an organized conspiracy by Muslims to overtake the Hindu population to capture political power. They are about to succeed within a few years. The right wing is appealing to Hindus to produce 10 children. Imagine if Hindus and Muslims are engaged in this procreative war, what will happen to the country? Fortunately, no Hindu has taken that appeal seriously. The fact is, no Muslim leader or scholar has asked Muslims to produce more children to overtake the Hindus. Of course, I did my primary study as on the side for this study to see what is the actual attitude of the Muslim. Is Islam a factor is stopping them from family planning? We found that lots of mullahs were stopping them from family planning, only saying that this is against the spirit of Islam. This is against Islam. Not for any political reason at all. Okay, look, multiply and become power. And now the propaganda in the right-wing thing is that, you want Aurangzeb back. If Aurangzeb will come, he will demolish all temples, and these guys are moving in that direction. Now, I have a friend of mine, Professor Dinesh Singh, who was the Vice Chancellor of Delhi University. one of the brightest fellows we have and a great mathematician. I sent him all my data and I said, Dinesh, can you make a mathematical model for me? How soon I'll come over and take over the government? So he put a wet blanket on me. He said, Bhaijan, forget about it, not even for 1,000 years. All my hopes of becoming some powerful man in 10 years were died to the ground. Now, this is the graph he made for the last 70 years. This is how the Muslims are overtaking the Hindus. You see the gap, the way the bottom line is the Muslims, the upper line is the Hindus, the way the Hindus are increasing, and the gap is widening. And so then I sent the things back to him and I said, this is about last 70 years. Please tell me what will happen in the next 1,000. He says, this is what will happen in the next 1,000. Same thing. Muslim line is at the bottom, Hindu line is going northward. This is how the gap is increasing. So the total myth, as you can see. Myth number 4. Muslims use polygamy for increasing population. Hum panch hamare 25. We have heard the top leader of the country, I would not name him, having said that, कि हम 5 हमारे 25 और बच्चे बनाने की factory और ये and all these kind of irresponsible things. हम 4 हमारे 40. We have heard it, we hear it all the day in and day out. You would not know. As a Muslim, I have heard it. Although I belong to an elite Muslim where these kind of comments do not actually reach. Now, the fact that there was a Government of India study in 1975 which found that all communities have polygamy of some level, and the least polygamous are the Muslims. Government of India study, not mine. Here is the graph. This is how it shows. Tribal communities, no Muslim there, 15.25%. Buddhists, Jains, Hindus, 5.8, Muslims 5.7. Now this is also an interesting graph. Muslims are willing to die. They will come out on the street and protest, my right for polygamy. I say Muslims should demand polygamy, ban on polygamy because they don't do it. If I don't do polygamy, why should I not ask for a ban on it? Whereas those who are demanding a ban on it themselves are guilty of it. This is a Government of India document. Now somebody says, look, this is a very old study. What can I do if Government of India did not do any other study on this? Why did they not do it? Sujata, no, she was the government, I was not. Now, polygamy, in fact, many people, I think you all know, I had a meeting with some of us, had a meeting with Shri Mohan Bhagwat ji. And I gave him this book and I gave him all these facts and I said, look, हम 5 हमारे 25 जो propaganda जो लोग आप करते हैं गलत है, वो तो संभव ही नहीं है. He said, what do you mean? मैंने कहा, because there are no women. He said, what do you mean? I said, have you heard of gender ratio? He had not. I said, gender ratio means ratio of women to men. For every 1,000 men, according to the last ratio, 2011, the last census, the ratio was 940. And Sujata will tell you, out of 110 years, this is the best ratio we have ever reached. It was to be always lower, which itself is a sad story, which can call for many PhDs. Why is it that women's ratio is less? Because that shows discrimination against them on a regular basis. Pause. I'm diabetic and therefore I feel thirsty a lot. Now, does Islam encourage polygamy? That was something was not known to me. There is only one verse in the Quran which gives conditional permission, and that too conditional to do family prayer, to have more wives. Suppose a wife is terminally ill. Now the only way out is to throw her out on the street and marry. Is that a good solution? So that is, in such conditions, a second marriage is allowed, so that the first woman is not thrown out. And what is happening in marriages and divorce in India, we see how women of all communities are thrown out on the street. Now, interestingly, there is only one ayat of the Quran which talks of the thing conditionally, but every imam, every mullah will tell you about that condition, that okay, you can the ayat goes like this: you can marry 1, 2, 3 or 4, provided you can treat them equally. And only Allah knows that that is very difficult to do. Therefore, you are advised to marry 1. Now, condition is permission. Permission is conditional. Now, there is another condition which every mullah was missing, but as a scholar, when I read it carefully, I found that is even more important. This chapter in the Quran is about orphans and widows. Allah is talking about orphans and widows. Please treat them well. Do not misappropriate their property. Do not treat them with cruelty. Do not replace their good things with your bad things. And ideally, from among them, you can marry 1, 2, 3 or 4. From among them, that is another condition which people were missing. That means marry a widow. If you pick up Indian Hindustan Times, and you will find everybody is looking for a virgin. Nobody wants to marry a widow. Not to talk of widows with children. Idea was women's security. So that was the context of the Quran, and the Quran, like any book, has to be read in proper context, which is what was missing. Now, myth number 5, which is the last of the 5 myths. Nowhere in the Quran proper family planning has been prohibited. Whereas sharab is prohibited, rape is prohibited, sex outside marriage is prohibited, interest is prohibited, and there is a verse in the Quran which says, whatever we wanted to ban on you or prohibit you, we have explained to you. This cannot be the case that Allah forgot to talk about family planning. That's why He didn't mention. Otherwise, जो बैन करना था वो तो उन्होंने बैन कर दिया, और खुद कुरान कह रहा है कि हमने जो बैन करना था तुमको समझा दिया, इसको तो बैन नहीं किया. There are only interpretations of the Quran for and against which people use. Now, the against family planning, the ayat which is used, this the Quran says, and there was a context which is relevant even today. The Arabs of those days, they used to bury their daughters alive. They used to bury them alive because they say we are so poor we cannot support them. This is what is happening today. What is female feticide? Exactly that in a different form. Now, there was an ayat in that context, those of you who bury your daughters in fear who will bring them up, it's a very big sin. Do not do that. If some child is produced, we will take care of her or him. Now, that was, and they take comfort from this guarantee कि अल्लाह ने कहा है कि जो वही पैदा होगा वो पैदा करेगा तो हम चलो 10-10 बच्चे करते हैं. अल्लाह ने तो प्रॉमिस किया. अल्लाह ने आपको ऐसा ब्लैंकेट प्रॉमिस नहीं दिया है. अल्लाह ने ये किया अगर पैदा हो ही गया, the girl, despite your efforts, so Allah will take care. That was the context. Now, I have studied the Quran. There, as I said, there are verses for and against. There are, I'll mention one verse which is the clinching verse to me. How does it go? Let those, look at the bottom please, let those who do not have the means for marriage keep themselves chaste until Allah gives them means out of grace. Now, today there is an age of marriage, 21 and 18. Artificial, arbitrary, but logical. Why 18? Why don't you allow a 12-year-old to marry? Because he doesn't have the means to bring up a family. So that was the purpose. So, and which means that only if you are in a position to, if you are fit to bring up a family, you should marry, otherwise stay. Now somebody, whatever the people do not understand from the Quran till today, we try to seek an interpretation from hadith, which is tradition of the Prophet. What he used to do or what he used to say as reported. वहाँ से guidance लेते हैं. Some poor man went to the Prophet. He says, look, Allah says I should not marry till I have the means. I am a very poor man, no doubt, but many physical needs to hai. What should I do? So Prophet repeated that ayat and in his own words. And this is what he says. This is amplified. Young men, those of you who can support a wife and household should marry. Now, he is giving a reason. For marriage keeps you from looking with lust at women. Reason given. And also the mean. And preserves you from promiscuity. But those who cannot should take to fasting, which is a means of tempering sexual desire. जब तक आप शादी नहीं करते और इधर उधर के औरतों को नहीं ताड़ना चाहिए आपको, उपवास रखो, रोज़ा रखो, रोज़ा आपके सेक्सुअल डिज़ायर को सप्रेस करेगा. तरीका भी बता दिया, रीज़न भी बता दिया. Now the third one, that is hadith. एक poor man who had many children went to the Prophet. He said, I want to practice family planning. The only known practice, family planning practice there was withdrawal method called al-azl, withdrawal. He said, मेरे कई बच्चे मुझे और नहीं चाहिए, लेकिन मेरा एक Jew friend है, वो कहता है कि no, it is an infanticide, it is तो murder है, ये तो murder है ये. तो फिर Prophet ने कहा कि नहीं, Jew ने गलत कहा, Jew ने गलत कहा. यानी अगर आपके बच्चे हैं और आप नहीं करना चाहते, you go ahead and do family planning. What more certificate do we need? Now, Islam in fact is the pioneer of family planning, as I discovered through my 1 rupee research, which is still pending with them. I have to collect it. Yeah. There is a professor of Al-Azhar University in Cairo, which is the biggest and best Islamic university worldwide. So the professor says, it's a wonder to the thinkers of today that Islam should give so much importance to child spacing and family planning so early in human history and in the absence of population pressure. जब तो कोई population का pressure नहीं था, 1400 साल पहले. Breastfeeding 2 साल की compulsory की है. Sujata and I, we have done so much of campaigning on this 2 साल की breastfeeding, because while breastfeeding, conception doesn't happen substantially. So, जो spacing पे वो क्या है, rights of women, rights of a woman for good health, right of a child for good upbringing, they are repeatedly stressed in Islam, and therefore Islam actually is the pioneer, which is something Muslims should know, and if those who are opposing it should stop opposing it. That is not wise at all. Now, it's not a Hindu-Muslim issue at all. Fertility of all communities is dependent on socio-economic factors like literacy, income, and service delivery. As the education goes up, number of children goes down. As the income goes up, children go down. Services reach and delivery, this is the important thing, and I'll show you a couple of graphs to prove that thing. Now, there are so many interstate variations. If it was a Islam or a subject or Hindu-Muslim subject, there would be, even in Kerala or in Tamil Nadu or Andhra Pradesh, Hindus, Muslims will all be producing many children. We see TFR in Kerala is only 1.56. Now, what is TFR? Total fertility rate, which is the number of women, number of children a woman is likely to produce in her own life, in her full lifetime. It should be 2.1, which is called a replacement rate. 2 parents हैं, उनके 2 बच्चे हो गए, parents मर गए, बच्चों ने take over कर लिया, population replace हो गई. 2.1 यहाँ पे क्या कर रहा है? 0.1 is because some children will die early, so that will disturb this figure. So 2.1 is the replacement rate, which we should know. And we have reached that. India has reached 2, not only 2.1, India is at 2.0. So we are doing pretty well. Our family planning has been a great success, while it is all voluntary. Though it was forced only for a couple of years during emergency, and we have suffered the backlash till today. You will notice Tamil Nadu is 1.74, Bihar 3.29, So what is the Hindu rate here? What is the Muslim rate here? Tell me. Because it is different from all parts, in different parts of the country. Now, you will see the zero education, 3 children, 12 years or more, 1.7, it comes down to half. Same thing, delayed age of marriage. This is very important. Illiterate people marry at 17. Those who have done 12 or more, their marriage is delayed by 5 years, 22. And which means millions of child births were saved because of this. As the age gets delayed, the number of children goes down. Fertility by wealth, the lowest, the poorest have 3 children, highest have 1.6. Now, have you ever heard somebody saying कि मुसलमानों की population बहुत बढ़ रही है, इनकी prosperity बढ़ा दो, इनकी literacy की बात करो? कभी सुनिए आपने कि कोई right wing वाला मुस्लिम को literacy की बात करता हो? मदर से बंद कराने तक की बात करते हैं. So now this is the thing, and these are all Government of India figures, mind you. Now service delivery. Only 3 days, 4 days ago, I used to say this 3 years ago, that which I have heard many times, most of you are innocent, you would not have even heard. Wherever there is a cluster of Muslims, उसको mini Pakistan कहते हैं. वो सामने वो mini Pakistan. Now उस mini Pakistan में कोई डॉक्टर साहब जाना नहीं चाहते. अब जब डॉक्टर साहब नहीं जाएंगे तो फैमिली प्लानिंग कैसे होगी? वहाँ पे कोई नर्स नहीं जाएगी, ये फैमिली प्लानिंग सर्विसेज नहीं जाएंगी तो फैमिली प्लानिंग कैसे होगी? तो सर्विस डिलीवरी में मुस्लिम एरियाज, NFHS says, not me, that their areas have the least services. Where do Muslims stand in all these? At the bottom. So this needs to be addressed. Now there is another interesting concept of unmet need. Very important. जो मैंने by the way RSS chief को भी समझाया. मैंने कहा देखिए unmet need, as it is very difficult to convince a Hindu or a Muslim or a Sikh or a Buddhist कि family planning करो, बहुत important चीज़ है. अब तो आसान है, 40 साल 50 साल पहले मुश्किल था. Now मुसलमान तैयार बैठा हुआ है, डॉक्टर साहब नहीं पहुंच रहे, तो this is an unmet need. The highest unmet need is of 16% is of the Muslims. मैंने उनसे कहा कि 6 महीने का कैंपेन चला दो कि मुसलमानों की अनमेट नीड को मीट कर देंगे, देखते हैं उनकी फिगर कहाँ से कहाँ जाती है. But that is where it hangs. Now, this is another interesting thing which came out of my research. You will notice Hindus and Muslims are shoulder to shoulder. But the literacy, Muslims are at the bottom. Who is the second most bottom? Hindus. Another, availability of antenatal care, Muslims and Hindus at the bottom. Availability of health infrastructure, together, shoulder to shoulder. Availability of advice on family planning, lowest for Muslims, second lowest for Hindus. So they are not on different ends of the spectrum, they are on the same end of the spectrum, and this is something which everybody misses. Now we see family planning in Muslim countries. Iran has the best family planning. The most conservative country has the best family planning, so religion doesn't come in the way. That is something which I tell my Muslim audiences. So therefore, family planning, these are the same figures. Now, mathematical model I have already mentioned. This is also, now national population policy of 2000 is the current policy, isn't it? The latest is 2000. It's a great success story. It came in the time of Mr. Vajpayee. No coercion has been used in the country. And we have achieved our TFR. We are already 2, and in 26 states it is less than 2. Their population will also not get replaced. I was just shocked when I heard that Telugu language's survival is in danger. Similarly, the survival of many communities, many religions will be in danger in this kind of a situation. But our policy, without compulsion, if it is working well, where is the need for a danda? Now, why the failure then? Because the problem has not been fully understood. Every document from the first plan document, and there are documents and documents in the government, as you know. They all talk of that Muslims have the least family planning, but what are you going to do about it? In fact, I wrote a letter to the then Joint Secretary of Family Planning, and she wrote a very nice letter, politically very nice letter, but scientifically a very stupid letter. Monica, what are you doing to educate Muslims about the family planning? He says, we do not discriminate. Politically correct, but very stupid. Because I'm a PhD in social marketing. PhD social marketing says people is no target audience. There are segments of the audience, men and women, rich and poor, old and young. So, and for them you have to have for an illiterate person, you would like to have a very beautiful poster, a beautiful booklet. For an illiterate person, you won't. Because you have to reach out to them through the means to which they have access. So, but that's what this is our administrative failure that we did not address. Is there any resource book I ask Sujata ji even now in the ministry or in the department dedicated to Muslims? Okay, look, this is what Islam says. If you come to me, Quraishi, you have many children. I have only 2, by the way. If you come to me, you have many children, you should do family planning, and I give you one answer. My religion is against it. You will hang your head and you will go away. I want you to fight it. I said, no, that is wrong. This is the book. This is what the Quran says. This is what Hadith says. You read this. Have you prepared our staff for this? No. Politically correct answer and a convenient answer कि हम discriminate नहीं करते. अरे discriminate नहीं करते तो फिर इसकी बात भी न करो कि ये लोगों का. Then interestingly, after the emergency, political backlash is something I have flagged. There was a committee formed about 5-7 years ago in National Institute of Health and Family Welfare under my chairmanship to see the politicians' response. So after many meetings, we decided that we will see the parliament, analyze the parliament questions for 4 parliaments, which is 20 years. And we found they don't ask questions on family planning. If you see the bottom bullet, only 0.15% of all lakhs of questions asked in 20 years were about family planning. They don't talk about it because they're scared. Recommendation, of course, Muslims should do more the family planning even more proactively. The whole purpose starting point for my book was to promote it among the Muslims, which I have done. And in fact, this book contains a resource book which I am willing to donate to Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and I'll fine-tune it for you pro bono to promote family planning among the Muslims and stop the false propaganda and so on. So thank you very much. We have 6 minutes. You know, I'm very happy to tell you that this book has been translated into several Indian languages. Bangla was the first, and Telugu is the second. And about how many copies have come? 90 copies. Some local friend of mine who invested, who got the translation done, who got it published. And if you buy those books, he will recover some of his losses, and you will be making a national contribution. About 80-90 books, I think, have come. They will be somewhere outside on the desk. Please I don't know what is the price, but if you can pay more than the price, that will be your help to the cause. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. It's already 45.
That's all right.
2-3 questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, we open this session for questions. As I said, we can take only 2 questions. And I see one hand that went up there first. We'd like at the back on the right side of me. Yes. His hand went first. So we take him, and then we'll take one other question. Yes. Please be brief. He gave a very good talk, so no need of compliments, just your question.
Only question, no comment.
The 2 proximate factors for population control are economic levels and female literacy. I'll give you two examples of that. The latest Government of India survey shows that there's a direct correlation between population growth and the economic levels, irrespective of the religion. Now coming to female literacy, I'll quote two technically Islamic countries, both of which, Iran and Bangladesh, were able to drastically reduce their TFR levels basically through female literacy levels. The same thing has been noticed in India, in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, and Himachal Pradesh.
Sir, your question, please. Oh, it was only a comment. Thank you.
Yes, this was my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Quraishi has decided the next one will be a lady. So any women hands? Okay, I see one going there.
No, I said after your two questions,
Okay.
there will be a lady.
So good morning, sir. My question is, when it comes to population, you have covered well, sir. How much of government funds are used to support this population? Because there is a myth that Muslim population is utilizing the majority of government funds, which the taxpayers pay. And when I come from Hyderabad, when I see the Muslim area here, even the corporate social responsibility funds which the corporate mandatory have to spend as per Companies Act, even those funds are not spent in Muslim
Yes,
area.
correct.
So how
Yes.
you look into this?
You have underlined a very sad state. Even the banks in these mini Pakistan. You know, remember a judge of the High Court, he used this word for which Supreme Court has blasted him. He used this word for a Muslim. So in these mini Pakistan, no microcredit, no bank is happy to open branches, no CSR, no education, economic boycott कि मुसलमान से सब्जी भी न खरीदना, आप सब्जी भी नहीं खरीदोगे तो वो जाके घर में बच्चे पैदा करेगा तो फिर आप रोगे. तो इसलिए ये we have to be sensible about it. This is unfortunately totally misinformed area. इस पे कोई debate ही नहीं हुई थी, इसको कोई जानता ही नहीं. इस किताब को मैं ये by the way, pro bono, I spent my 6 lakh initially, and it is no royalty, no fee for a lecture, and if you will give me, madam, just half a minute, a little human interest story. I told you my inner voice said I should not charge any money. And it turned out to be so right. 6 years later, in 2000, I was in London, staying with my daughter who was studying there, and the hostel is called London House, many of you may know. I got a call from somebody. He said, I'm Dr. Quraishi, President of Muslim Doctors of Association of UK. By the way, he was from Hyderabad. So, and he said, we want to meet you. The tone was a bit threatening. I didn't want to get beaten up in London. So I said, look, tomorrow I have my flight. So which flight? So Air India. So 10 o'clock, they reached the airport, 2 of them. And they brought some books. Hey, Mr. Quraishi, we have read your papers and we have lots of things to discuss and argue. And here is a book by a Christian lady, here is a book by this. I said, I'll read all that. Please, because that was the time when Taslima Nasreen and what was the other guy who was Salman Rushdie. Salman Rushdie, my friend used to warn me that you are writing this book, please beware. And that is what was going to happen to me in London. So they say, ये कि आपने गलत लिखा है. मैंने कहा कि साहब मैं, there might be mischievous people, I'm not, I'm a believing Muslim. मैंने अपने दिल से लिखा और कुरान को कोट किया है. आप इसको पढ़ो और भी, और मैं आपका लिटरेचर पढ़ूंगा और भी भेजना. They never came back to me. And then I say, look, in fact, you know, their first statement was shocking. They say, you know, family planning is a Western conspiracy against Islam, and they hire mercenaries like you through UN agencies to write such papers. Imagine in one sentence there are 4 charges which would have stuck on me. I was hired by a UN agency which made me a mercenary And therefore, I was a tool in the hands of the West. I said, "Okay, I have not taken even 1 rupee. So I was, that gave me the moral authority, and this is the human side of the story.
Yes. Yes.
I am Ram Mohan Namile, retired Chief Manager, Indian Bank. My question or share of thought is that worldwide, why we should not have a human religion in which all the several religions, about 10 major religions across the world, and several unnoticeable small religions, so that we have only one religion. We see a lot of mergers and accusations in the corporate world day in, day out. Why religions should not merge and take the best points in each of the religion and make one religion and make the world more peaceful and harmonious than what we are now, and all the evils of the humanity are, if not eliminated totally, at least substantially reduced.
Yes. Sir, what you say actually was tried by Emperor Akbar through Sulh-e-Kul. And Emperor Akbar was called the Great Akbar till recently, and now he has been dropped from the list of greats and he is not even mentioned. So you make me the emperor, I'll implement your proposal.
Dr. Quraishi, we have time for another couple of questions. Yes. Excuse me. Here, the gentleman who's standing. Here, the gentleman who's standing.
The International Society of Mass Communication claims that television is the biggest contributor for family planning because it enlightens women and keeps men and women entertained in the evening. Is this true, or is it just
absolutely
a claim?
In fact, if you read the book, and I do suggest you do, there is a chapter on the role of media and the access of various communities to the media. The poorest, you're talking of a television, the poorest do not have the television. That's why they produce more children. So all these factors are in, and based on National Family Health Survey only, all 5 surveys that I mentioned here, these are the most beautiful surveys. And I'm very happy to say, madam, when I was publishing this book every day, this is the only book out of 7 which was referred to the legal division of HarperCollins. And every day they will ask me 3 questions, please quote the source, please quote the source, please quote the source. I was getting irritated. But in hindsight, after 5 months of hard work, not one person is able to lay his finger on it. Because in fact, they were going to the extent of asking me to cite my own statement. What is the source of my own statement? Okay, if I'm making a statement, it's my statement.
We'll take one more question. The person in the black shirt.
This young man has been
Yes,
standing
young man.
from the beginning. You get a reward for perseverance.
Sir, I have a very simple question. Nowadays, why we are not seeing family planning advertisement on TV while India's population is rapidly growing? We are world's most populated country. And is there any government strategy to not show family planning advertisement on TV or publish them in newspapers?
No, there has been enough advertising on family planning, and there was a time, about 30 years ago, when we were more conservative, the family planning ads were shown on TV only after 11 p.m., which was the right thing to do, but now even the small children, even if there is an ad on condom, the child will be laughing about it, and you should, for healthy, small, happy family, आप condom का इस्तेमाल करें, बच्चा कहता है नहीं करूँगा. So it is now widely spread as it should be. In fact, to get over this embarrassment factor, there was something interesting done by I came across this when I was heading National AIDS Control Organization, where Sujata succeeded me. In Thailand, they did a festival where condoms were used as balloons all over and in the park, everywhere, so that you could touch it, demystify, instead of making fun, feeling embarrassed. They got over the embarrassment factor through one massive campaign. That is what we need, and that's what we have done. We have already achieved. We don't have to be apologetic. We are the largest population-related country, and that has become our asset. There was a time when we were embarrassed about our population, and we used to talk of brain drain. These were the two negative things. But now our numbers have become our human resource who are dominating the world. And the same brain drain has, when it has captured the US and Europe, so our population actually, China and India both have proved that their population is an asset. All you need to do is to build their skill. And you will find out, it is mentioned in the book, only less than 5% of Indian people are formally skilled, only less than 5%, yet we are dominating the NASA and medical thing in USA and other people. South Korea, it is 96%. Japan, in UK, other 30, 40, 60%. India is only 5%. Just focus on skill building, Our human resource is the best in the world. We'll capture the world in this century.